All right, what's the GCF of those four terms? 1. All right, so then what are you going to do?
Group.
All right, now normally you would group the first two and the last two, correct? So if you look at this, from the first group, what's the GCF?
1.
All right, and then from the second group, what's the GCF? And now be careful, there's, yeah, so negative x. So here that's a 1, correct? And here that's a negative x. So negative x times what's a negative x?
Oh,
Negative x times what's a negative 2xy?
negative 2.
Positive.
Or positive 2y.
Now, are these the same? No. Remember, that was the idea, to get those to be the same, correct? So you could pull that out. So it's not. So grouping the first two and the last two did not work. So we have to rearrange the terms. So that's, if you look at the directions on that worksheet, it said, where's the worksheet? The one I just gave you. No, it's somewhere. There it is. Nope, I got it. Okay, it says rewrite the polynomial so that the terms are rearranged correctly. And then follow the steps as presented in the video, or the steps we've already done with the previous factor by grouping. Okay, so now it says you will need to view the video from Canvas to complete this worksheet, but we're actually doing part of it now. Normally in the past I would just give this out and say look at the video, but I'm just doing a couple of them.
Bless your heart.
So we got to rearrange this. So obviously that order did not work. So let's say 2x squared, and let's put what term next, do you think?
Minus x.
Minus x? Or you could try the minus 2xy, see if that works. Let's just do minus x for right now. And then what's going to be the next one?
And then you have the y minus 2xy.
All right. So basically he just rearranged the middle two. All right, let's try grouping again. Group the first two, last two. What can I factor out the first two?
X.
When you get 2x
2
minus 1. Over here it'll be plus, and then what? Y times 1 minus 2x. All right. Are those exactly the same? No.
No.
No. See, 2x minus 1 is not the same as 1 minus 2x. But they're,
Closer.
well, so remember, huh? Well, not the reciprocal. I think I know what you're trying to say, but they're not reciprocals, because the reciprocal of 3 is, no, is 1/3.
Yeah.
The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. The opposite of 3 is negative 3.
Yeah.
And if you look at this, 2x, and this is what? Negative 2x. This is negative 1, and this is what?
Positive 1.
Positive 1. So they're opposites, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you could have done, now noticing that these are almost the same, except they differ by what kind of sign, a negative sign, is you could have done this instead. Still, you could have still kept this in the same order. Does not matter. Does not matter. Except right here, see how they only differ by the sign?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put I'm gonna put
So
the negative 2xy first. I'm going to show you what's going to happen. Like this. All right. And then I'm going to group. What kind of group, what can I do with the first group?
The X
The x times
and 2
x minus 1.
minus 1.
From the other group, see this is subtraction?
So you got your negative.
Negative.
outside the parentheses.
Negative what?
Negative y.
Times,
Negative.
Negative 2x.
no,
No, positive 2x.
Positive
is
2x.
Negative.
a negative times a positive is a negative.
Yeah.
And a negative y times what's a positive y?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. And now are these the same?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the answer?
X minus y.
2x minus 1, put that one first. It doesn't matter if you put x minus y first, but you remember the idea is to factor out the common factor.
So
2x minus 1 times
x minus y.
x minus y. Now, if you put x minus y first, no big deal. Okay? All right, so where it says put the correct order here, where it says that, here's what you put the blank. You put the one, you put this one right here. So 2x squared minus x minus 2xy plus y. So that's the order that we use to factor. Okay? All right, let's look at this one. All right, suppose we had 4a squared minus 21b squared, b cubed, plus 6ab minus 14ab squared. All right, so what's the GCF?
You're still grouping.
That's 4a squared minus 21b cubed plus 6ab minus 14ab squared.
No,
No, you don't have an A in the second thing.
Yeah, negative 21b cubed.
So it'll be 1.
It'll be 1. It can't be b either because there's no b's in this one. And the GCF of 421, negative 21, 6, and negative 14 is 1. All right, so then the GCF is 1, so you're not going to take out anything. So then we have 4 terms, so we're going to factor by grouping. On the corner. If I group the first two, the last two, what can I factor out the first group? A 1?
Yeah.
So that's 4a squared minus 21b cubed. Over here, I can factor out
AB.
No.
an ab, that's correct, but what else?
Two.
A 2. And what's left?
3.
3 minus
Minus
7ab. Yeah.
7b, right?
Or 7b.
Okay, is that going to help me?
No.
Yeah, 'cause these are not the same.
Reordered.
All right, so let's see if grouping the middle two, if reversing the middle two will help. So let's try this.
4a squared.
Plus 6ab
plus
minus 21b cubed minus 14ab squared. So I just change the order of the middle two. Okay, from the first group, what can I factor out?
2.
2A.
2a,
2a.
and then 2a plus
3b.
3b. From the second group, what could I factor out?
7.
7 minus 7,
Minus 7.
Yeah, negative 7b.
b, right? b squared.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
right.
B
that's
squared.
Okay.
So,
negative
Negative 7b squared times what's the negative 21b cubed?
3.
3b. And then negative 7b squared times what's the negative 14ab squared?
Negative, yeah,
Plus,
positive 2a.
plus 2.
Okay. Is that the same thing?
No.
Why not?
Yes, it's
No,
just.
Yes, it is the same thing.
It's the
Commutative
opposite. It's the
property.
opposite, so you got.
No.
No?
Why? Those are not opposites.
Commutative property.
Community property.
Commutative property.
All right,
So the order in which you add does not matter.
correct. So you're done.
So, no, I'm not done.
You
Oh,
still gotta write it out.
So what's the answer?
2a
2a
plus
plus
3b
3.
multiplied by 2a minus 7b squared.
yeah, what he said.
Okay. And so the blank where it says put the correct order here,
You would have to write
it'll be
4a squared.
this one right here.
4a squared plus 6ab minus 21b cubed minus 14ab squared.
All right, so the one that we rearranged. So 4a squared plus 6ab minus 21b cubed minus 14ab squared.
That's the correct order.
Yeah, that's the order we ended up getting to get this factored part.
It's just another way for him to make you show you
Okay.
work.
All right. So we arranged this order to this order, and that's the one we used. We grouped the first two, the last two, and that's what we got. Okay. All right. Okay. Now now there's a front and a back part, so there are 4 problems altogether. Now let's not do a week from today. The one in the final, when if they do have any like this, it's grouping the first two, the last two. That's the one that's going to work. But on my math lab, they may have one where you have to regroup. You have to rearrange the terms. Okay, so let's continue talking about section 9.3, the factoring. So we're on, this is section, I said 9.3, but I meant section 6.3,
I was about to say, we jumped a lot.
section 3.3.
A quick second.
Yeah. All right, section 6.3, and the last problem we did was, okay, we did an example, so it was like 14 or so. All right. Okay, so let's look at number all right, let's do number 12. All right, number 12, you have 36r squared minus 5r minus 24. Now, the ones we did earlier, the coefficient of the square term, it was basically prime, I think. All of them were prime.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only one choice to put there. Now you have more possibilities. So you have more chances to where you have to cross what you did out and try another one. So that's that trial and error. So you maybe not get in the first two tries.
What are all those variables there?
R,
Yeah.
5R, 36R squared.
Okay, so 36r squared minus 5r minus 24. All right, so what's the GCF? First thing you always need to look for.
1.
1.
Yeah.
All right, so how many terms do you have?
3.
So you're going to go to factor that's what? 2 binomials.
Yes, 2 binomials. So
And so remember, that's where that trial and error comes in terms of FOIL.
well, 36.
Okay, so you do the F first. So two terms whose product is 36r squared.
6R.
So you want to try 6r times 6r. There's also 13 times,
Yeah.
no, not 13. I'm sorry, 18 times 2, right? 9 times 4. Okay, so you have all those possibilities, but you said you want to try 6 and 6. All right, 6 and 6. All right, so that gives us F. Now, it may or may not work. Okay, then let's do the 24. So what are the possibilities of 24?
6 and 4.
All right, so let's think. 24, we have 6 and 4. What else?
8 and 3.
8 and 3.
2 and 12.
2 and 12. 24 and 1, right? And that's about it, I think.
You
Correct?
said you want to try the one that's closest together first.
Yeah, but let's think about this for a moment. All right, so all right, if you go to the one closest together first, what's the one closest together first?
Just 6 and
6 and 4. But I want you to remember what we talked about. If I put the 6 here, you know that cannot be.
Right.
I cannot have the 6 here. Because if the 6 were here, then that meant I could take out what from here?
That,
A 6.
that's 6.
Which meant that the original problem, I could have factored out a what? A 6.
Yeah.
So now I can't put the 6 here. You may say, well, put the 4 here. I can't put the 4 here either
Because you got 6 on the other side.
because that, I know, right, for the same reason, but even if I didn't look at that 6, these are divisible by what? 2, which meant that the whole thing I could have pulled out at 2.
Right.
So 6 and 4 wouldn't work. What about 8 and 3? I want you to think about 8 and 3. 6R, 6R. Could I put 8 here?
No. 'cause then
No,
you-
for the same reason.
you could do it
If
by
I can put an 8 here, what could I take out?
So
A 2, which meant that all 3 terms I could have taken out a 2, and I can't. Because what's the GCF?
1.
1. So I can't even use that one. Could I use the 2 and the 12?
No.
For the same reason. No matter where I put the 12, I can factor out a 6, right?
Yeah.
24 and 1. Same thing. If I put the 24 here or here, I could factor out a 6.
So we get prime.
No.
You're going to have to reorder.
You haven't-
You're going to have to reorder.
Yeah, so instead of using 6 and 6, someone mentioned use what? 9 and 4. So let's try 9 and 4. Okay. 9r times 4r is 36r squared. All right, let's try 9 and 4. And we still have the 24s. We still have 6 and 4, 8 and 3, 2 and 12, 24 and 1. Correct?
Try 1 and 24.
Okay. We'll try 1 and 24. Who wants to try 1 and 24? Yeah, I wouldn't try 1 and 24 because you wouldn't get that small number right here.
Yeah, you gotta look for
All right,
something. You'll
so
wind up getting
you want to try 8 and 3? All right, so if you want to try 8 and 3, be strategic. I want you to think about what we talked about.
Yeah, that-
If we try 8 and 3, where you know you cannot put the 8 where?
On the right.
With the 4.
Right?
All right, so you can put the 8 where?
You're gonna put the 8 on the left.
With the 9. And you can put the 3 where?
On the right.
Right here. Okay? Now, and remember the last sign's negative, correct?
Correct.
So that means the signs in here have to be
Different.
different. All right, so before we talk about what those signs are, let's see if I can get that 5. What's the outer?
27R.
What's the inner?
32R.
32R. That's a 32R. All right, now let's remember the signs are different, so that means you're going to be subtracting those, correct?
Yep.
So what's 27 from 32?
5.
And that's what you wanted. You wanted that 5. So now all you got to do is determine what your signs are. So in order to get a negative 5, that means the 32 has to be what? Negative.
Negative.
And the 27 has to be
Positive.
positive. So that means that the 3 has to be positive and the 8 has to be negative. And that's trial and error.
Circle that bad boy.
Now, again, you need to be strategic. So what we talked about, the 8 and 3, you're going to ask yourself, can I put the 8 here? And you guys,
And if basically, if you could factor it out, it pretty much would be a no-go because if we could have factored it out, we would have just done that to begin with. So,
that's correct.
all right.
All right, now you always have to check your work though. Go back and check. The first times first is what?
36R squared.
Okay. The outer is
Negative.
positive
Positive 27.
27R. The inner is
Negative.
negative 32. When I add them up, I do get
The negative.
negative 5R. And then the last, a negative 8 times a positive 3 is a
Negative.
negative 24. So that's your answer. Okay. Now it's 12. Okay, let's look at 16. You have 12x squared plus 17x plus 5. All right, now whenever either the first or the last term, whenever one of them is prime, it makes things a little bit easier.
Yeah, 'cause you know it's gonna be 1.
All right, so for 12, what's the GCF?
1.
All right, so I'm going directly to two binomials since we have 3 terms. For 12x squared, what are the possibilities for 12?
3 and 4, 2 and 6, 12 and 1.
That's about it, right?
Pretty much it.
All right, so what do you want to try first? Pick something, it's trial and error. 3 and 4?
Yeah.
But you got to say 3x and 4x.
Right.
Or you could say 4x and 3x, does not matter. Okay, so that takes care of F. Okay, now the L. There's only one possibility for 5.
Yeah, 1 and 5.
Okay, 1 and 5. Now we can't use that strategy because I can put the 5 anywhere, right? So let's put it here. If it doesn't work, we'll switch them. The last sign's positive. That's always the easy kind. The last sign's positive means these signs in here are the same, and they're going to be the middle.
That one, yeah.
So they're both what?
Positive.
Positive. All right, now even though you put your 2 binomials, you got to check this. What's the outer?
3x.
What's the inner?
28.
20x.
Is that what you wanted?
No.
So if I switch those, is that gonna help? If I switch the 5 and then the 1, no. So switching them is not going to help either, right? Because look, if you say 3x plus 1 times 4x plus 5,
But what about switching the 3 and the 4?
well, it's the same thing. You would get one of these back. So the outer is 15x, the inner is 4x. You get 19x, right? Now he said switching the 3 and the 4, but if you switch the 3 and the 4, the 3x and the 4x, you would get 3x plus 1, which is what this is.
Oh,
Okay? So that meant that 3x and 4x did not work. So what do you want to try?
8's,
2 and the 6.
2 and the 6? Okay. So it's trial and error. 2x, 6x. Where do you want to put the 5?
Let's see, the 5.
First?
first.
And the 1 the last? Okay, the last term's positive?
So they're both positive.
They're both positive? Now let's check. What's the outer?
2x,
2x,
Inner?
30.
30x.
Well, not going to work, right?
That's definitely way too much. All right, let's go with 12 and 1.
All right, see, switching's not going to work either.
No.
Because you can put the 1 here, the 5 here, that's going to be 16. So 12 and 1?
Gotta have a winner now.
Yeah, you're in the last try, right?
Yeah.
5-1.
All right. Now, you know, normally what's going to happen is the one closer to get you're going to try. It turns out that this case, the ones that's further apart is the one that works. So 12x and x, and then you're going to put the 5 where, though?
To the left. That's what we've been putting it.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, but you know it's not going to go here because what's 12 times 5?
12 times 5 is 60.
Yeah, so there's no way you can get a 17 from that. So the 5x will go here, the 1 will go here. They're still both plus, right?
All right.
Okay, now
You got
fall it out. Check your
12x,
work. What's the outer?
12x.
The inner?
5,
5x.
Add them up,
17x.
which is what you wanted.
Yay.
All right. And so there's your answer. So trial and error. If something doesn't work, try something else. But notice we
That's a whole lot
we
of
listed combinations that would give us what we need. Okay. All right. Let's do 22. All right, 22. All right, 22. You have 25n squared minus 5n minus 6.
Oh, yeah. Factor that out. GSC. Or, yeah, GCF would be
5 in on each side.
Yeah, but what's the GCF?
Oh,
1.
It'd have to be 1.
So we're going to go directly to the two binomials.
well, that's why I said that.
All right, so there's only two possibilities of 25, 5 and 5 and 25 and 1. What do you want to try?
5 in.
Yeah.
So 5n, 5n. There are two possibilities for 6. There's 3, 2, and 6, 1. What do you want to try?
3-2.
3, 2? All right, so it doesn't matter where you put the 3 because the 5s are the same, right? So put the 3 here, 2 here. Last sign's negative, so that means these have to be different. So let's do the outer and the inner first. What's the outer? What's the inner? Now, since they're different, you know you can be subtracting those out in the inner, right?
Mhm.
So 10 from 15 is
5.
5, which is what we wanted. But we want what kind of 5 in?
A negative.
All right, so in order for that to be negative, which one of these has to be negative? 15, and this has to be positive. So that means that the 2 has to be
Positive.
positive, and the 3 has to be
Negative.
negative. Because it's the only way you can get a negative 15 in and a positive 10 in.
Yes, son.
All right, and so that's your answer. You would check in your mind. You would say 5n times 5n is 25n squared. The outer is 10n. The inner is negative 15n. When I add them up, I get a negative 5n, which is what you wanted. And a negative 3 times positive 2 is a negative 6. All right, let's look at 26. All right, 26, you have 12x squared minus 14x minus 10.
Looks like we might have a GCF other than 1.
GCF is 2, so you're gonna say 2 times, and then what are you gonna write?
6x
X minus
6x squared
6x squared, sorry.
7
7x minus 5.
minus 5.
All right, and then let's go off to the side and see if I can factor this trinomial.
Mm,
All right, So the last is prime, so that will help.
One.
Okay, so what do you want to try for 6x squared?
2 and 3.
2 and 3. All right, so the 5, there's only one possibility, 5 and 1. Where do you put the 5? Let's put it here and see what happens. So put the 5 here, the 1 there, right? Okay, so the last sign's negative means these signs are different. So that means that when I look at the out and the end, I'm going to be subtracting those.
2x.
So that's 2x, and that's
And then
15x. When I subtract them, I'm going to get 13x, which is not what I wanted.
So something like right.
So the order in which I have this is not correct. So what do you want to change?
Well, there's two options of what we can change. We could draw the 6 and the 1, or we could move the 5 and the 1 around, right?
What do you want to do?
Let's just try to move the 5 and the 1 around.
Move the 5 and the 1? Okay, let's do the out and the inner. What's the outer?
10x,
What's the inner?
3x.
You're subtracting those, not adding. Why am I subtracting these?
Because they're,
Because the signs are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So do I get the 7?
Yep.
So that's the correct order. Now all I need to do is figure out the signs. So
You gotta get a negative.
so I got to get a negative 7. In order for this to be negative right here, the 10 has to be
positive.
No, negative.
Negative.
Sorry.
and the
Sorry.
3 has to be positive. So that means the 5 here has to be negative. The 1 has to be
Positive.
positive. All right, now before we go 1 and put the correct answer, just check. 2x times 3x is 6x squared. The outer is negative 10x. The inner is positive 3x. When I add them up, I do get that negative 7x. And a positive 1 times a negative 5 is a negative 5. But the answer, you got to include the GCF. So it'll be 2 times 2x plus 1 times 3x minus 5. All right, how many factors are in the answer? 3. What are the factors?
2.
2 is the first one. What's the second one?
2x plus 1.
2x plus 1. What's the third one?
3x minus 5.
3x minus 5. All right, let's look at 32. All right, so in 32 you have 6x squared minus 11x minus 10.
Well, 11's prime number.
Yeah.
No, but you're only looking at the first and the last in terms of that. So that one's not an easy one. So what's the GCF though?
Well, it's gotta
Right.
be 1.
So go directly. Well, why do you say it's got to be 1?
Because 11 is prime.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And-
So the only possibility 11 and 1. Okay. No, okay, I got you.
Is there any other reason I don't know?
No, I was just wondering. You say it's got to be. I was just wondering why. But no, that you're right. 11's prime. The only divisors of 11, 11 and 1. All right. So we're going to try for 6x squared.
3x and 2x.
Sounds good to me.
If that doesn't work, we'll have to try what?
6 and 1.
6x and 1x. Or what do you want to try for 10?
2 and 5.
Or 10 and 1. So there's only 2 possibilities, right?
Right.
Let's try 2 and 5. Now be strategic. Am I going to put the 5 with this 3?
Nope.
No, why not? Because if I put the 5 here, then I have to put the what?
2 there.
The 2 here.
2 there, and then that would, yeah.
And then you could take out a 2, which meant the whole GCF here was a 2. And it's not. So that means you have to put what here? The 2 right there and the 5 right there.
And then you got a negative sign.
All right, so that's right. So I'm going to go directly to the out and the inner. What's the outer?
15x.
What's the inner? And I'm going to be subtracting because the signs are different. But when I subtract them, I do get
11.
11x. But I need what kind of 11x?
You need a negative.
Which means that the 15 has to be
Then
negative,
go with the negative.
and the 4 has to be positive. So which means the 5 has to be
Negative.
negative, and the 2 has to be positive.
And here's your answer.
Okay, and always, before you go in, always check your work. 3x times 2x is 6x squared. The outer is negative 15x. The inner is positive 4x. Add them up, you get your middle term. And then a positive 2 times negative 5 is a negative 10. Okay, let's look at 38. 38. So in 38, you have 36x squared plus 55x minus 14. So 36x squared plus 55x minus 14.
Okay, so you've got 55, so
11 and 5, and then 55 and 1.
All right, GCF is 1.
that's gonna be 1.
Okay, what do you try? What do you want to try for 36?
6,
You want to try 6 and 6? Okay. What do you want to try for 14?
2 and 7. Or
Okay, so 2 and 7, and then 14 and 1, right? We know right away that neither one will work with our options right here. You understand why, right? Be strategic. 7 and 2. I got to put 2 in one of those. It doesn't matter where I put it.
right, okay. that's
They're
why.
both. I can pull out a 2 in either case, which meant this
So
original
it's
was the GCF was 2 and it's not. Same thing for 14. If I put a 14 here or here.
Put 18 and 2.
So I know that the only possibilities are 7 and 2 and 14 and 1. So I know that 6 and 6 can't work. So what do you want to try?
You got 18 and 2, but that probably wouldn't work either.
What are the other possibilities?
3 and 12.
9 and 4.
Okay, what do you want to try? Let's. We tried 6 and 6 because they were close together. What are the next two closest? 9 and 4. Let's do 9 and 4. See what happens. Okay, now where would the 7 have to go?
With the 4.
With the 4, and the 2 has to go with the 9.
We might have.
Okay, now the last sign's negative, right?
Right.
So let's do the outer. What's the outer?
63.
7 times, okay, 63x. The inner is,
8x.
and I do have to subtract those,
Right, and that would give you 55.
and that would give you 55. What kind of 55 do I want?
You want a positive 55.
Positive. So that means that the 63 has to be,
Positive.
and the 8 has to be negative. So that means the 7 has to be,
Positive.
and the 2 has to be
Negative.
negative. Okay, so there's the answer there. Now before we go on, always check 9x times 4x is 36x squared. What's the outer?
50 plus
63x. The inner is
8,
negative 8x. When I add them up, I do get the
55.
middle term. And then negative 2 times a positive 7 is a
Negative.
negative 14. All right. Okay, let's look at, okay, so this will be 54. 54. Okay, in 54 you have 24x squared minus 49x plus 15. So 24x squared minus
1.
minus 49x
UCF
plus 15. GCF is 1. So two binomials. Okay, what did you try for 24x squared?
4 and 6.
4 and 6.
4 and 6, 3 and 8, 2 and 12, 24 and 1. I mean,
All right, so if you're trying 4 and 6, what are the possibilities of 15? There's
3 and 5.
5 and 3, 15 and 1. All right, so let's try the 5 and the 3. I know that I cannot put the 3 where?
With the 6.
With the 6.
you
So that means that this has to be the 5, this has to be the 3, correct?
Right, and you got a plus,
Okay, so that means that these signs are going to be the
negative,
same, and they're both going to be negative. All right, now let's check. What's the outer?
18x.
Negative.
Yeah, that.
What's the inner? Negative.
20.
When I add them up, do I get that 49, negative 49?
no.
No. So that didn't work.
Okay, so let's try a different.
So putting 15 in 1 is not going to work either.
83.
Do you want to try 8 and 3 instead of 6x and 4x?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's do the 5 and 3 again. I know that I cannot put the,
Can't put 3 and 3, so
I
you
cannot-
got 3 first.
so I have to put the 3 in the first parentheses and the 5 in the second. Y'all agree? Okay,
And you
last
still-
sign's
you still got- you
positive,
still got the
so these signs have to be the same, and they're both going to be
negative.
negative. All right, now let's do the outer.
So,
The outer is a
40x.
negative
or
40x.
Negative 40x.
The inner's a,
Negative
Negative.
9x,
and when I add them up, I do get a,
negative 49x.
which is what you wanted. So that'll be the answer. And again, check before you move on. So 8x times 3x is
Negative 24.
positive 24x squared.
Yeah, positive 24.
The outer is negative 40x. The inner is a negative 9x. When you add them up, you do get negative 49x, which is the middle. And a negative times a negative is a
Positive.
positive. So negative 3 times a negative 5 is a positive 15. Okay, let's look at 62. 62. You have x squared, y squared, minus 14xy plus 49. Okay, so this time you have a couple of variables in there. But don't make that difficult. It's still your trial and error type thing. The GCF is 1, so I'm going to go directly to the two binomials. What times what x squared, y squared?
X and Y.
Xy. What about 49? What do you want to try?
7 times
7, 7. Last sign's positive. These signs in here have to be the
negative.
same, and they're both the middle sign. Negative, right? So I've done my two binomials, but check. X squared times x squared is
That,
x squared, y squared. The outer is negative 7xy. The inner is also negative 7xy,
negative 14.
which is what you wanted. And a negative 7 times a negative 7 is a positive 7, positive 49. So your answer
We nailed that one.
could be xy minus 7 times xy minus 7. Since the binomials are the same, you could say xy minus 7 squared. Right. Now this trinomial right here, see how we had a binomial squared?
Mhm.
A binomial squared. You see the binomial's the same, right?
Mhm.
So you have the square of a binomial. So whenever you have a binomial squared or a square of a binomial, that trinomial is actually called a perfect square trinomial.
We don't get a whole lot of those, do we?
No,
I'm guessing.
No,
those are too easy.
no, well, yeah, I mean, the perfect square trinomials you could sometimes look at and see what it is. But basically, I'll show you another example. If you look at this right here, you see how this is 49, that's a perfect square?
Mhm.
So you see the perfect square?
Right.
All right, so when I square 49, when I take the square root of 49, I get 7. And then 7 times this right here, this coefficient right here is what? 1. 1's also perfect square. And what's the square root of 1?
1.
1 times 7 is 7. When I double it, I get what?
14.
14. So that's the idea. We're going to look at it a little bit more in a little while. But let's do another perfect square, and I'll go back and talk about what I just said. So here's another perfect square, and see why it is. So this is number 40. But it's still trial and error. If you got to do trial and error, don't let the fact it's called a perfect square trinomial throw you off. You're still factoring. So x squared plus 18x plus 81. Even if you cannot tell that's a perfect square trinomial, then do what we've been doing. Trial and error. The x squared is easy. That was from a previous lesson, right?
Yeah.
There's only one possibility. What is it?
X.
X and x. And then for 81,
9.
you want to try 99. And it works, right?
Yep.
It works.
And I can already see because there's an 18 in the middle.
Right. And so let's talk about the idea of it being a perfect square. 81 is a perfect square to begin with. So if we do have a perfect square trinomial, then the last term has to be a perfect square.
Right.
So 81 is a perfect square because what number times itself is 81?
9.
9. The coefficient of x squared is 1. It itself is already a perfect square. And the square root of 1 is what? 1. So 1 times 9 is 9. Double it, you get what?
18.
18. All right, so that's why it's called a perfect square. So that means you can factor it as a binomial squared. That's what that means. So this is 9 and 9, correct? Last sign's positive. These have to be what?
Negative
No,
or positive?
the middle sign.
Middle, okay. Make sure I'm right with that.
All right, and so you can say x plus 9 times itself, or you can say x plus 9 what?
Squared.
Squared. So that's a perfect square. All right, same thing with this one. This is 42. And let's see if we can determine that it is a perfect square trinomial. X squared minus 12x plus 36. So can you tell if it's a perfect square?
Yep.
Yes.
Because 36 is a perfect square.
And,
That's an x squared. That's a 1.
right.
Square root of 1 is,
1,
One,
okay, 1 times, what's the square root of 36?
6.
6. And you add it together. you
1
get
times
12.
6 is 6. Double it, I get what?
12.
At 12. So that means that when I factor, I'm going to get a binomial squared. That's what
Put a
that
whole
means.
bunch of those on the test.
So when you factor it, you get xx. What about the 36?
You got 6 and
6.
6 and 6. Yeah, you want to use 6 and 6. You don't want to use 9 and 4, right?
No.
No.
Because the 36 is 6 times 6. 36 is a perfect square. 6 times 6.
Mhm.
Last sign's positive means these signs have to be the same, and they're both what?
Negative.
So x minus 6
X
squared.
minus which first?
All right. Let's do 50. Okay.
What
So
is that?
50. You have 9y squared
Oh.
plus 48y plus 64. Okay, let's see if it's a perfect square to begin with.
Is it 3y?
So 64 is a perfect square. What's the square root of 64?
8.
Have that 8, right?
Mhm.
Have that 8. 9's a perfect square. What's the square root of 9?
3.
What's 8 times 3?
24.
24.
And when I double 24, do I get that
48.
middle?
Yep.
I do get it. So what that means
3y.
is that I'll be able to factor this as a binomial times itself. And so you know right away what it is. What's this first term?
3y.
And what's the last term?
8.
Plus
And it's
plus 8, right?
Yeah.
And there's your answer. So 3y plus 8. Now if you did a trial and error, you would have said 3y times what? 3y. 8
8
times 8. The last sign's
plus,
positive.
so you gotta use
They're both the
plus.
same and they're both middle.
There you go.
All right, let's look at, okay, so let's say we had, this is 68. All right, 68, you have 12x cubed minus 34x squared plus 24x.
Alrighty.
GCF would be 2.
What's GCF?
No, it's
2x.
4 evenly.
Yeah, you're right.
So 2x, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to say 2x times, and then what do I write?
6x squared.
Uh-huh.
12, 8.
Not 12x.
No, it's 15 plus 2. It'll be
2 times
17.
what's-
17.
17x. And then plus
12.
12.
12.
So let's go off to the side and figure out if I can factor this trinomial. Okay, 2 binomials. All right, so
It's going to be a 1.
what do you want to try for 6x squared? 3x and 2x, okay. What do we try for 12? So for 12 we have 4 and 3, 6 and 2,
1 and 12.
1 and 12.
1 and 12. That's about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know I can't use 6 and 2.
Right.
See that?
Yeah,
Because no matter what I put 6 and 2, it won't work.
you already have one empty sheet.
All right, you want to try 4 and 3?
But
So if I put 4 and 3, where must the 4 go?
in the three, with three,
And where must the 3 go?
right there.
Okay. All right, the last sign's positive means these both have to be what?
Negative,
Negative because the middle sign's negative. Now let's check. What's the outer?
9,
What's the inner?
Negative
When I add them up, what do I get?
17.
Okay. So that's what I wanted. So that was the answer.
So bring that over with your 2x.
2x
And then,
times 3x minus 4 times 2 is minus 2.
yeah, she said.
All right. That's the answer. Okay. All right, let's do 74. 74. All right, in 74 you have 9q to the 4th. 9q to the 4th minus 42q cubed plus 49q squared.
Well, 49's a perfect square.
Don't look at that first. We're supposed to look at first.
Let's see if we can put a GC.
Okay, what's the GCF?
Q.
Square.
Q squared.
Q squared.
Right.
At the minimum.
So q squared, and then what do I have left?
Sir, you keep them going, you must be it.
Okay.
9q squared.
Yeah, 9q squared minus 42q plus 49.
Okay. So now let's go off to the side and look at 9q squared minus 42q plus 49. So what do you notice, or what do you think this is, that trinomial?
Perfect square.
It's a perfect square. All right, and you can determine that. Remember, just do this. So what times itself is 9q squared?
3q.
3q. What times itself is 49?
7,
7. And this has what kind of sign?
negative.
So all you do is just say 3 times 7 is,
21.
and then double it. Do I get that 42?
42.
So
So
the answer is going to be q squared times,
3q minus 7 squared.
or you could have just said q squared times 3q minus 7 times itself twice.
Yeah.
Does not matter.
It's a lot extra.
Okay?
And as long as we obviously can see and tell, we're able to just write that for that work and then write the below it, just if we have to write the.
In other words, he's
What
saying you
about
don't
you?
have to work it out if you
Yeah.
can obviously see that it's going to be a perfect.
Oh, so you're saying can you go from here to here without showing this?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
She was requiring us to how picky.
No, I'm just making sure I don't get doctor points
That's
for
what I
anything.
It's
He
possible.
doesn't want to get dinged.
I like the points.
All right, let's look at 82. So in 82, you have 25x squared minus 60xy plus 36y squared.
That's 6. That's a perfect square. I think.
Yeah, the 36y squared is a perfect
All
square.
right, but the GCF is 1, correct?
Yeah, the GCS.
And even if you having trouble determining if it's a perfect square, just do the two binomials. What do you want to try for 25x squared?
5x.
5x and 5x. What do you want to try for 36y squared?
6y.
And 6y. Last sign's positive. These signs have to be what?
Negative.
Negative. So he was right. It was a perfect square, right?
Yeah.
Perfect square
I
trinomial.
figured it's a 5 times 6
So,
is 30.
yeah,
and you
5.
double it,
So the square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 36 is 6. What's 5 times 6?
30. Then
When you double it, you get
Yeah.
60. Right. So you can have this as the answer, or you can say 5x minus 6y squared. Now again, before you go on, just make sure you check this. First times first was 5x times 5x.
25x squared.
Right. And then the outer is negative 30x.
Y.
The inner is also negative 30x. Now remember, the binomials are the same. If the binomials are the same, that means the outer and the inner have to be the same. What's a negative 6y and a negative 6y?
36y squared.
Right, and that's what you wanted. So you have the negative 60x, which is, sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah,
Y.
this outer is incorrect. It's negative 30x what?
X,
Y. And this is negative 30x y. When you add them up, you get a negative 60x y, which is what you wanted. Okay? All right. Okay, 86. All right, 86, you have negative 3t plus 4t squared minus 7.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah, GCF is 1.
Yeah, it's definitely 1.
Okay.
7 prime. 83.
Hello.
Man, this is some just set that on fire.
Do we rearrange it?
Okay, what do you
Yeah.
mean?
Put it in descending order.
All right, put in descending order. Okay.
So you have a 4t squared minus 3t minus 7.
Okay, so you put in descending order. All right. Now the GCF is 1. Now go directly to binomials.
So you have a 2t.
And 2t. 1 is 7. That's the only possibility for 7. 1 is 7.
1 is 7.
And it doesn't matter where you put it because these are both 2t's.
Yeah.
So if you put the 1 here, the 7 there, let's see if it works. It's not going to work, is it? You see right away it's not going to work? Because what's the
You have
outer?
a 14t.
The inner is?
The
2t.
I've got to subtract them. Why must I subtract those?
because it's a negative.
Because the last sign's negative.
You're not going to come up with 3.
Yeah, so that's going to be a 10t, so that's not going to work. So I can't change 7 and 1, but so therefore I have to change the what?
Oh, go with a 4 and a 1?
4 and 1. You'll see I can't change the 7 and 1, right? Because there's only one possibility.
Yeah, it's going to flip and be the same either way.
All right. So put the 4t and t,
1. Yeah, that.
and where do you want to put the 7?
Uh,
If you put it at the end, is that going to help? Try it. I mean, put it at the end. Some of you will. It's no big deal. Put it at the end. What's the outer?
28t.
What's the inner?
T.
1t.
When I subtract them, what do I get?
27t.
And that's not what you wanted. What did you want?
The 1 or the
A negative 3t.
So flip the 7 and a 1.
Okay, right. So that didn't work. So do this instead. So put the 7 here and the 1 here.
Okay.
Now remember, I'm not putting the signs in yet because I'm going to do that when I determine which of these needs to be negative.
Well, you got your 4,
So the outer's 4t. What's the inner?
7.
Now remember, sometimes we add those, sometimes we subtract. When do I say 7t plus 4t? When the signs are
Trying to get 11.
the same, right? No, when the signs are the same.
I know.
And here the signs are not going to be the same because the last sign is what?
Negative.
Negative. So I know I'm going to subtract those because the last sign's negative. So one has to be positive, the other one has to be what?
The
Negative.
4 is going to be positive
But-
and the 7.
But I know that when I subtract those, I am going to get the 3t, which is what I want, but what kind of 3t?
Negative.
So that means that the 7 has to be,
The negative.
and the 4 has to be
Positive.
positive. So that means the 1 has to be positive, and the 7 here has to be negative. And so that's your answer right here. So your answer would be 4t minus 7 times t plus 1. Right? Any question at this point? Okay, 92. 92. You have 3a squared b squared plus 12ab plus 1.
Yeah, the They are in descending order already, so you don't do anything there.
Would have to.
GCF is 1.
Yeah,
So it's gonna have to be, 3 and a 1.
Okay, you want to try, so what do I put here though? 3 AB and
1.
1 AB?
Yeah, which,
And there's only one possibility for 1. What's it?
1 and 1.
The last sign is,
Positive.
Positive.
So it's gonna be positive.
so I'm done?
Check your word.
Check your word.
Okay, what's the outer?
3AB,
What's the inner?
or AB,
When I add them up,
4AB.
4AB.
that's not what I wanted.
No, so it's only right.
Prime.
Ah.
If
Remember,
no matter what you remember, 3 and 1 are prime to begin with. Now that's not why it's prime, but that what I'm saying here is that there's only one possibility for 3 and 1. Switching is not going to help.
Right.
Nothing
When
is going to work.
Yankees.
So it's prime. Okay. All right. So
Don't give us none of those ones.
all right. So let's see.
Just once you work it out, figure it down any further.
Okay, so this is 6.3 Part A. So we did this yesterday. So actually, and we did some of it today as well.
Thursday.
So the GCF looks like, and all of them are 1s, and there's a back part. Right now, I don't. Well, this is trial and error. The trial and error what we're doing. This is a reverse FOIL. Okay, now right here it says don't use any other method, and that's because if you recall, some of you from high school, you could also factor these trinomials by grouping. It's called the AC method. We're going to do the AC method in the next section. So don't do any other method. I want you to do trial and error because you need to know both. You need to know the AC method and you need to know trial and error. Knowing both is going to help. I don't think it says show work anywhere. Oh, show this. So I also need, okay, so basically what you can do is this. So you're going to have this problem, and let me just do one that we did. So let's say it was this. And so you're going to do this. You're just going to put the correct answer. Now, remember, you're not going to get the right answer right away, correct? So on a sheet of paper, on another sheet of paper, you're not going to turn in, you're going to do your work. Then the one that works, you're going to come back and put the answer here. So you're going to do this. You're going to say, this was what, this right here? You're going to say 3x plus 2, 2x minus 5. And all I want you to do is to do the out and the inner. That's all, just like we did this. See this right here? I want this right here, here, in this space. And then the answer is going to go here, 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 5. You understand what I want in this space right here? Just, it's this right here. So whatever your answer is, just do this. Whatever your answer is, put that here, and then check your out and the inner. Make sure it works. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you would say negative 15x, and this is 4x. When you add them up, what do you get? Negative 11x. You understand what I want there? So notice though you are going to have to do some work on another sheet of paper because notice we had trial and errors going on all over the place. Whatever your answer is, you think it is, put it here. Do the opposite out in the inner, and see if it works. Do the same thing here, out in the inner, and check. Okay. All right. So if you're not, remember it's not due for another week. So if you're not certain, the next class period, ask me if this is what I want, and I'll let you know. This is part D, the weekend. Wait, when? What now?
So we're going to be studying for the test next couple of days.
Right. So you can do this as well. True. I said the next class period, didn't I? All right. Here it doesn't say anything about showing works. I just want the answer. All right. So notice some of those that does have a GCF other than 1 though. And don't forget, there's some problems on the back. So I just want the answer.
I'll move it into big numbers. See if I figure it out.
Just want the answer. So that's part B. And this is the one with the two variables. Remember those? See this right here? There's a GCF, right? So take out the GCF. And then there's a back. And when you do this one, 9 and 10, remind me, here what you want to do first is take out a -1. I think we may have done one like that where we took out a
We did
-1.
one on one of the prior worksheets.
Okay. So
That was the one where
we'll try and do another one like this. But 9 and 10, take out the -1 first, and then you factor that trinomial. But your answer is going to be a -1 in it, right? -1 times the two binomials, so it'll look like this.
One that just be negative sign and then
Yeah, I mean, you could say negative, whatever, or you can say negative. All right. See what you can do with those three. It's not that difficult. It's just some of it's tedious, but it's not difficult. It's just tedious work.
one that eat each other.
We were way past that.
Okay.
No, I mean, last semester, he was.
So this is
alternate between
6.3
Hardy and
part
Jeff.
B.
This year, this semester, doesn't seem to be
6.3
going like,
part C.
going like that.
And 6.3 part A. So three of them. Work on those. Now you're not going to probably work on it until after the test, but do work on those. Don't blow that off. Because everything,
Don't forget
most of
you
what
got
you're
my
going to
math
do,
lab doing these.
most of what you're going to do in here has to do with factoring. You got to know the factoring. And I guess you got my math lab coming up also.
Yeah,
It's
like,
just
like,
one section.
one section is like 3 days.
Yeah, and then that Thursday, what worksheets you do Thursday?
Should be-
C, mark 6.2 or 6 point, whichever, 6 point something, part C.
What does that cover?
I turned it in, so I don't know.